Welcome to Story Hour, a virtual meetup hosted by Wolf and Heron.
Several years ago, I lived in my dream apartment in Rochester, New York. It was hardwood floors and incredibly, incredibly beautiful. And I lived alone, and my landlord and neighbors were deaf. So it was like the perfect situation of like no noise, no one to hear me. Amazing. My mom had a rabbit at the time. John, this one's for you. And some circumstances occurred in her life that she could no longer have the rabbit. And I was the only one in her life who knew how to take care of rabbits. So it fell to me to smuggle this rabbit into my apartment because pets were not allowed. And the only place in my apartment where this rabbit could really live was the place where there was carpeting, which was in my bedroom. Now, it went along fine for a while where the rabbit lived in my bedroom, and during the day she would sleep under my bed and everything was copacetic and wonderful. And then I had an electrical issue in my bedroom, which required me to call my landlord, who would have to come into my bedroom to fix it, where I was hiding an illegal rabbit. And I didn't want to get, kicked out of this apartment, and I was deathly afraid of getting in trouble. I hate getting in trouble. I hate standing up to authority. It's like my least favorite thing. And so I angsted over calling my landlord because I was like, how am I going to hide a rabbit? Right? Because I can't I can't bring her outside. I can't really hide her, right? I can't force her movement to be in a certain area. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to call him and I'm going to cross my fingers that she's going to stay asleep under my bed while he's working on this electrical issue. So I did. And he came in and he did the electrical work and she stayed asleep under my bed the whole time. It was like a miracle. And so he signs to me that he's done and he's leaving. Great. So I hear him walk down the hall and I tap on the floor, right, to get her to, kind of come out, wake up and come out. Cause I'm so excited that it worked. Right. And I want to pet her and celebrate. And then I hear his footsteps coming back down the hall. And he's approaching my room. And the moment he walks around the corner, right, and he touches the doorknob, she doesn't just stick her head out from under the bed. She launches out from under the bed, probably 3 feet off the ground, right, and lands back down right on the floor in front of him. And his face, because he's deaf, right, so he's not going to shout. So his face in that moment is like, and I was like, oh my God, here it is. We're done. It's over. I'm going to get kicked out of this apartment. In my mind, I'm cursing my mom for leaving me with this rabbit. There's a whole thing going on, right? So he takes a minute to absorb the fact that there's a rabbit just flying out of the bed in front of him. And then he goes into this whole story that I only understood part of about that he grew up with rabbits and he loves rabbits and it's totally fine.
Okay, awesome.
That's not the whole thing.
Good first story. That was amazing. Congrats on breaking through that boundary.
I had to bring it back around to bunnies.
That's right.
Too tempting not to.
We're having a bunny theme today. So what should Hilarie hold on to? What was great about her story? Go ahead, Milo.
It was very personable. I think it was kind of I felt like it was a story you'd tell when you were meeting somebody for the first time in a group of people, at a party, and you're just like, oh, let me tell you this story about my landlord, totally doing something weird. So I think it was really easy to understand. It had a concept that everybody was able to empathize with. I'm sure we've all tried to get away with something like that. And I particularly liked that you made yourself, you kind of put yourself out on the spot in the beginning by saying, I don't like to stand up to authority. And so the rest of the story was this kind of there was a tension there where you're just hoping everything's going to be okay. Meanwhile, there's this chaotic little creature that has its own, plans for what's going to happen in the universe. And of course, in the end, you dropped that bomb with it hopping out. So it was really, I think it was very, very cool story that could apply to many different things.
John, you had a thought?
It was just a very warm and relatable story. Like, it's this peccadillo of you're hiding a bunny, and like those things that we all do that are, and you mentioned, your discomfort with authority, and that helped me, and as well as the sequence of the story. I really felt the tension. And the funny thing about it is, we all do little naughty things like that sometimes, and we're so afraid of getting caught. And the consequences are, worst case, I don't know about this, like maybe you could have theoretically gotten evicted or something, which would have been really bad. But for the most part, we do really inflate the stakes in our own minds. We inflate the stakes of getting caught for these squirrely little things. And so I felt the tension. I also felt like it was kind of warm and moving, and the way that expectations didn't play out, as you would expect them to. And all of those things really added quality to the story.
Bart, I think I saw your hand too.
Yeah, I just like I said, mirror those guys. It's just real personable, easy flow. Like you've told it a bunch of times before, and you understood where you wanted to go with it. And it was awesome. It was great. It was very, very, very engaging. Put it that way.
I've never told it before.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, that's even better.
I think what I found really compelling, Hilarie, is that you had a clear line, right? There's an arc that your story, you had a beginning, middle, and end, and you knew where it would end, and you knew how to get there. And that made your story linear enough that there weren't tangents, there weren't asides, we weren't confused, we could follow it. And that is extremely hard to do. So congrats, and good on you. And you can only get better from here. This is amazing. It's a really good starting point. And Kara, I think you had a thought too.
Well, I think the way that the guys described it was personable and relatable and good flow. But specifically, I would call out that you have nice, varied delivery.
Mm.
You're welcoming in how you speak, and it is very as somebody who talks to you, very conversational, and that's how you speak to people. You didn't go somewhere else to tell a story, and you weren't reading or you weren't performing, but you were interesting and engaging in terms of pitch and pace and the dynamics of the speaking. And so from a delivery perspective, naturally, I think that's one of your strengths.
Yeah, I would second that. That was actually the thought I had. There's a moment when you said, and I was so excited for something. And even just your voice went up and you had a little hand movement that went with it. And there was something that was even just for those 6 words, you embodied it in a way that I could feel it immediately. And that's really powerful to be able to do. So good on you. All right, we're 2 minutes over, so let's rapid fire. What are some things that Hilarie can experiment with or play with to make the story even more powerful? Go ahead, Milo.
I think that the way that you described the rabbit jumping, or the bunny jumping out into the middle of the room and the landlord seeing it, I feel like that you could have had a better build up to it, because it kind of came out of nowhere. You were like, oh, and then the next thing we were doing was we were talking, the bunny jumped out. The elements were present because, again, you created that tension from the end. But I feel like right before you said that, you were talking about some other things. And so that, I think, is the climax of the entire story. It's just okay, everything's okay. He finished the electrical problem. We're all good. Finally, he's saying bye. And then bam, a bomb goes off. And we're standing there in silence. I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and then he's looking at the bunny. It's there's a way to kind of massage that emotion that your crowd's going to feel. And I know that this story is something that you just came up with right now, but if you were to have more time to prepare it, I feel like you can build up to that. And then that's the crescendo. And then the perplexing irony at the end could be that this guy is oh, I'm actually quite fond of bunnies. That's a nice one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead, Bart.
I think you could almost start the story too, explaining how you are very adverse to challenging authority. It kind of like you start with that, be like, here's the deal. I am not good with challenging authority. And and then you can go into this whole thing about, and it happened at this one time where this happened, so you can set that up.
Yeah.
Something to work with.
I like that.
Go ahead, Kara.
So you gave yourself a personality in how you described the authority thing. You described your feelings about the apartment. I think you could give more of a personality to the bunny and to the landlord, the gentleman that came into the space. So there's probably think about what 2 to 3 details could you share about those characters to bring them to life more? Is it a name? Is it bunny movement? Is it the clothes that the landlord is wearing? What are the ways that you can just flesh out those characters a little bit more?
Yeah.
To add to that, actually, I think you can also build your drama that way, right? And so since you're afraid of authority and your landlord is showing up, what about him is authoritative, right? To lean into this a little bit more and draw the tension. Is his body really imposing? Are you kind of woo, right? As you're sitting there waiting, watching the underside of your bed and watching him do his electrical thing, and kind of your heart's racing, and all of that can be part of the drama build, and it will also simultaneously give your landlord some more personality.
Or is it about territory? And the bunny's in your space and he's entering your space, but he also controls the space.
Hilarie, thank you for your story. It was lovely.
Visit wolfandheron.com to find out more about our story hours.